RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, brought to you by Quest Nutrition. Visit questnutrition.com or questketo.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is the show that settles the scores. There's been a lot of scores to be settled over the course of the last week, and we will do our best to settle them with our high-powered panel. But first, we go to Cape Coral, Florida, bringing the man with the final word on all topics, Dave Palumbo. Dave, another week in which the offstage controversies eclipse what happened on the stage. Of course, we're talking about the Arnold Australian. We're joined today by Gregg Valentino, Chris Aceto, and Bostin Loyd. Three of your favorites to help hash this all out.
Yeah, you know, I said to myself, this is such a, there's so much polarizing opinions on what happened, you know, to Dallas McCarver at that Australian Grand Prix, or I should say Australia Arnold now, they call it. And, you know, from Shawn Ray's opinion to his opinion to Chad's opinion to this one's opinion. And so I needed a diversified panel of people who have their own minds and are not afraid to say what they think. And we know that certainly Gregg Valentino and Bostin Loyd fit that bill perfectly. So I think it'll be a good balance of opinions here. I don't think we're going to get everyone agreeing with each other.
Now let's introduce the panelists first. My fellow New Yorker, because the rest of them, well, at least Chris is also in the Northeast, but the man with the exploding arms, Gregg Valentino, back on the airwaves of RX Television. Gregg, how are we feeling?
What's going on, Sid? And my other three guys there, Bostin, Chris.
Others. Of course, we go down to Florida, 45 minutes outside of Tampa. He says he lives in about a retirement community. Of course, we're talking about Bostin Loyd, who himself weighed in heavily on everything going on this week between Shawn Ray and Dallas McCarver. Bostin, how are you feeling?
Very good, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. And of course, we go staying in the Northeast up to Portland, Maine, the man they call the Technician, Chris Aceto. Chris, you got a lot of your thoughts out on Heavy Muscle Radio, but here another opportunity to kind of open it up on everything that's gone on over the last week or so.
Yeah, I don't even really know the topic, so let's see what happens. I know it's you know, obviously Dallas, dehydration, stomachs, and coughing. So, of course, Shawn Ray is going to be involved, even though he's not here.
Shawn Ray certainly will be involved. But the first topic of debate, we go to Flex Wheeler. Now, of course, one of the big news items coming out of the 2017 Arnold Classic was the announcement made by Flex Wheeler that he is going to be competing at the 2017 Mr. Olympia competition. So it kind of ushers back to last year where Kevin Levrone was given the special invitation at the Pittsburgh Pro and all sorts of excitement that you're going to get one of the legends of bodybuilding, one of the legends from the classic 90s era back on stage to compete against today's best. All sorts of anticipation, excitement leading into last year's Olympia. This is a little different, however, as Flex Wheeler is going to be competing in the classic physique division. That's not the main story, though. Flex Wheeler had a kidney operation, and Dave, I want you to get a little bit more into that. We're going to talk about the debate topic is going to be whether it is safe for the legendary Flex Wheeler to return to the stage at such a high stake level. But Dave, talk to the audience just to clarify and give the scientific perspective as far as the kidney operation and what that entails for Flex Wheeler.
Well, it wasn't a kidney operation. It was a kidney transplant. His kidneys, Flex has a disease known as focal glomerulosclerosis of the kidney tubules. And what happens is they get sclerotic and scarred over and they don't work. And it's a progressive disease. It's like an autoimmune disease, and it just happens over and over. And obviously, can bodybuilding and bodybuilding drugs and the lifestyle speed it up? Yeah, maybe, but he would have had this disease anyway. So he had to have a kidney transplant at some point. He got it. But the thing about kidney transplants is when you have a donated kidney, you have to stay on immune suppressive drugs your entire life, or your body will reject the organ. So there's, Flex is on medication for the rest of his life for that. Also, obviously, because you're on immune suppressive drugs, your immune system is not as good and you can get sick more easily. And especially if you put your body under a lot of stress, it could certainly lead to problems. So the question obviously remains, and I'll let these other guys go first, is it a smart decision for Flex? And at the age of over 50 years old, should he even be doing it? Should he be allowed to do it? Should he be cleared to do it medically?
we're going to go to you first on this one. We're going to lay this out in 3 different areas. 1, is it safe for him to return? 2, should he be allowed to compete at this stage? And then 3, again, for his age, should someone over the age of 50 or around the age of 50 after a long hiatus be allowed to return? So Bostin, let's go to the first part of it first. Is it safe for Flex Wheeler to make this kind of a comeback given his condition?
It depends. He calls himself the natural freak. I don't know if he's planning on running any drugs for this, but I would say it's safe as long as he doesn't go too crazy or too extremes with either end. I mean, if you're eating quality foods and you're coming down slowly, he does a long prep, I would say it's safe. I don't think it's a smart decision. I think he's going to look terrible. His arms are formed and shit, so I don't know. He has like a real plastic look to him. I think Levrone has more potential to look better than Flex, just because Levrone still has that upper body that I feel like he could build on. And even though Levrone's legs are, I think it is a bad decision, 100% for him to come back.
Boss, let me ask you, let's take a step back here. Again, as a fan of the bodybuilding sport, and obviously last year when it was announced that Kevin Levrone was returning, fans of all ends of the bodybuilding spectrum are so excited to see Levrone return. In your opinion, as a fan of the sport, as an analyst of the sport, where does this rank to you in comparison to last year's announcement with Levrone making his return?
I think Levrone was way more substantial because it's bodybuilding. It's the big boys. Everyone wanted to see that comeback. I was more interested in seeing Levrone come back than Phil Heath walk on stage. When they called Kevin Levrone to come out, that's what made it for me. I wanted to watch that more than anything. And so I don't think Flex is going to have that same impact because he's doing classic physique. But I never watched classic physique, and I can guarantee you this year I will be following it because he's in it.
Gregg Valentino, let's go to you first. Again, your level of excitement to see Flex Wheeler back on the stage as compared to last year, seeing Kevin Levrone, the build-up, and eventually taking the stage at the Olympia. And then, is it safe, in your opinion, for Flex Wheeler to make this kind of a return?
Well, to be honest with you, if he wants to do it, power to him. You know what I mean? It's kind of like watching George Foreman come back when he was like 50 years old. I don't think it's a smart decision because, the kidney thing could be really serious. You know what I'm saying? I agree with Bostin. See, I think he's going in the physique thing because in his mind, he might think, well, maybe I don't have to take so much shit. I'll rely on my genetics a little bit more because I have that structure. So I don't have to take as much shit. So I don't have to go into bodybuilding and be big and super ripped. I just, I think that might be his mindset for the whole going for physique instead of going for, classic physique instead of going for bodybuilding. I think, for bodybuilding, he knows he'd never be able to, he would kill himself. He would probably die trying to go for it. I don't think it's smart. Anybody that has one kidney, that you're out of your mind. You should thank God that you're alive because I have a cousin who died from that. You know what I'm saying? From that same disease. And, a lot of things can happen. And like Dave said, you have to take things that keep that kidney from being attacked. Your immune system sees that as a foreign invader. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of factors here that can happen or not happen. I do believe, though, you can't tell a guy what to do. And the man is a legend. I think it's crazy that, the IFBB don't care. They're, to them, they just like, oh, yeah, we're going to make some shkadol with this, So that's the way they think. So we don't, they're a moot point. But when it comes to Flex Wheeler, his thinking, I thought he had a kid's kidney. I wasn't joking around before. I heard that he only had a little kidney. I don't know. Either way, one kidney, even if it's a big one, to go to put steroids into a body, the kidneys are a factory, for cleaning your body. You know what I'm saying? I just think it's crazy. I don't know. I wouldn't do it if I was him. I think he's out of his mind. But I support him. You know what I mean? At the same time, hey, I hope you win. I like Flex. He's all right. I'm sorry. I can keep talking. I don't shut the fuck up. No, because I saw Johnny going like this. I don't know if he's saying like, shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's wrapping it up. He's telling me to wrap it up, and I'm still listening to both you guys. I'm saying, let him talk.
Sorry, Sid.
Hey, you gotta apologize to me. I'm not the one wrapping you up. It's our producer sitting there in Cape Coral. Chris, let's go to you on this one. Again, your analysis as far as the level of interest and excitement that Flex Wheeler returning is going to bring in comparison to last year with Kevin Levrone gracing the Olympia stage, and then in your opinion, is this safe for Flex Wheeler going through this prep and doing everything it's going to take to go up against the Arash Bars and Danny Hesters of the world?
Well, I think that in terms of the level of excitement, following Levrone, which was a dud in terms of his placing, right, and the way he looked or we expected him to look. I mean, I'm kind of like Boston. I was excited for Levrone because, the back of my mind, way in the back, it's like, what if he shows up wacky looking? You know what I mean? And he probably could have came in a lot better, you know what I mean, if he had trained longer and all those things. But in terms of excitement, it's like a do-over again. I mean, it's like a been there, done that, even though it's a different person. While it might be exciting to some people, I don't think it's going to be that exciting because I think people have or will lower their expectation of what Flex is going to look like. And like I said, he's not, yes, it's classic, which is almost even worse because no matter what he looks like, we're going to say like, God, 93. He looks like nothing compared to 93 Olympia. No, I mean, 93 Olympia or Arnold. No one does. So, that's going to be, quote, like the letdown. I mean, that's just a fact. And, going up against Danny Hester and Arash Bar. I mean, I work with Arash Bar, and I said it a long time ago. You watch what happens year 2, 3, and 4 in the classic bodybuilding. In 3 years from now, these guys who are top 5 aren't even going to be in the top 15 because we're going to get people coming out of the woodwork with V-tapers that we never thought people could have. And they'll probably make people like Flex Wheeler look asymmetrical, unsymmetrical. Look at the woman's, what's the class with the 3 girls who just placed top 3, and I don't even know the division. The 3 black girls, they all look like insane. What class is that?
Figure, right?
Figure. Look how unbelievably developed and capped delts and cap tries, small waist, flare to the thighs. They look like Flex Wheelers. My point is that this year we might see people in that Olympia that smoke last year's top 5. I don't know. It's a whole nother year coming up. And in terms of healthy, anything that's been broken once or did not work once will never function to its maximum again. It's like a furnace in an apartment building. If it's a rebuilt model, rest assured it's not new, and you're going to be calling the heating guy soon because it's going to break. And it's the same thing with the human body. If once you have a bad knee, like a really bad knee, you can never bring it back and be able to do the leg presses and the squats again.
Yes.
That's Lebrone's issue. And the same thing is once you have a kidney, once you have something that was, taken out and replaced, not only, like I use the analogy of a mechanical instrument, but the human body, until you get into that prep, you don't know how healthy it's going to be. It's as safe as you personally want to make it be. So you can be reckless and make it unsafe, or, you can be mature about it and prep in a way, I'm sure, that limits the downside, that is, safe. So, overall in this comeback, like I said, I like to remember these guys, it's like the Masters Olympia we used to have, right? And we'd see people and we'd expect like, Samir to look like Samir and Boyarko to look like Boyarko and Robbie and, the whole 9 yards, and everyone were fragments of their previous self. So I like to, keep that in mind. And I think it's great to bow out when you're on top.
Before I go to Dave Boston, I wanted to go back to you real quick on this because I want to sort of combine a couple of things that Greg and Chris said. And you had some heavy thoughts on the classic physique division last year. I remember after the Olympia, you laid out your analysis. So in your opinion, given Flex Wheeler's motivation to come back, what do you think it's going to take for him to even be competitive against some of the best that we saw last year in the classic physique division? And in your opinion, can he be competitive but do so safely? Again, the topic of conversation has been for him to return, is it safe? But for him to push himself to the point where he's going to be able to theoretically stand toe-to-toe with the top 4, top 5 of last year, do you think that's doable in a safe manner?
No, I don't think even if he went balls deep on drugs and did whatever he had to do, I don't think he could be. I think a lot of it has to do with age. Like Darren Charles is a rare occasion. He's very old, but he's always trained. He's always stayed in the gym. He's always probably stayed on a little bit of test or TRT or whatever it is. He's always been in shape. He never lost his shape. He never stopped training. His muscle maturity kept getting better and better. So I kind of look at that like, can he compete with Darren Charles? And I say no, he can't. And I don't even think Darren Charles plays top 5 at the Olympia. So no, I don't see him placing top 5. There's no way.
Dave, let's go to you. Final word on this one. As far as whether or not you think Flex Wheeler can come back in a safe manner. You actually had a backstage conversation with Flex at the Arnold discussing the very topic of whether he thinks he can come back safely. I'm not saying shed the details of that conversation, but from your analysis, your knowledge, and what you took from that conversation, in your opinion, can Flex come back safely after this hiatus?
I think when people get something into their head, they can rationalize anything. I mean, I've had, you have people tell you, this is the risks of doing a certain surgery, and if you want that surgery enough, you will put every risk to rest, and you'll just think about the things that are positive. So Flex wants to compete. Why he wants to compete, I don't know. Like I said, it could be that he never really had closure on his career. He wants to see if he still got it. I saw some pictures of him that he had on his Instagram. He looks pretty good. I mean, but is that going to be good enough to beat the Terrence Ruffins and the Arash Rabars and the Danny Hesters? I don't know. I think that he suspects that he can do it. He did say he was going to be safe, and who knows? I'm sure he's going to start out with good intentions. Will he then get drawn into the whole bodybuilding pull, I call it? The pull to use more supplements, more gear, more this, more that, eat more protein, and will that become, a negative health ramification for him? Well, only Flex knows that, and if his life is important, I know he's got kids still, and I know he's a family man, so I don't think he's going to want to do anything self-destructive to himself, and I think he's the kind of guy who's a realist. I think if he realizes that, hey, I'm not going to be competitive with these guys, he'll pull out. Levrone had committed to so many people, I think he couldn't pull out. Although he probably wanted to because he knew his legs were not where they needed to be. Once again, I think better option Flex is picking going into classic physique. This way he doesn't have to get that big. Matter of fact, he can't get that big because he has to weigh under 205 pounds, which would be the lightest that he ever competed probably since, he turned pro, or even, maybe before that. So he's really kind of limited by how much he could weigh, and in essence, that's a safety net in and of itself.
The last part of this topic, and the point of the conversation for this part of the debate is, can somebody in their 50s be competitive on an Olympia stage? I'm going to ask it in this way, and Greg, we'll go to you first on this one. Can somebody who's been on a long hiatus, a la Kevin Levrone, and now what we're going to see in September with Flex Wheeler, can somebody off a long hiatus who's in their 50s come back to be competitive, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm older than all you guys. I'm 57. In a couple of years, I'm going to be 60. So your body just doesn't work the same. You know what I mean? Your body just doesn't work. In no sports, you see baseball players come back, and you can't just pick up where you left, especially bodybuilding, which is, it's a more of a science. Other sports, you either got it or you don't. If you're a good baseball player, even over time, look at Derek Jeter. When he hit 40, I mean, he had trouble hitting, everything was ground balls. He couldn't hit the ball out of the park. I mean, it was done, right? I mean, what I'm saying to you is, though, and that's a baseball player. It's a 40. With bodybuilding, there's a lot more to it, I mean, there really is. So I don't see coming back after a long hiatus like that. I really don't see it, especially with age. You can't train, you can't function, you can't do a lot of shit that you used to be able to do. You know what I mean? I pee every fucking 15 minutes, and I can't even take hormone replacement. I'm a freaking Momo, but that's regardless. I'm just telling you the body changes, and You're not going to be Father Time. I think you should just be happy with, when you go up there, people remember you as a legend. If you can't even place and you stink and you're even in the freaking, physique, classic physique, because you can't take a lot of shit to get in the bigger class. People are going to be like, oh, dude, you lose credibility. You do. And not for nothing. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay. LeBron is a likable guy. Okay. I actually like Flex Wheeler as a person. But, and when you start calling, says, dude, I'm the natural wonder. I'm the 8th world wonder. And you start that kind of shit. People kind of, LeBron is a good guy. People like him. So if Flex doesn't do so well, I don't know how good his reputation is going to be as much as like Kevin's likable. Even if he loses, you like him. There's something about him you like. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. I don't know. I think it's crazy. I do. I think the whole thing is nuts. If I had a kidney problem, no fucking way. No way. I would never do that.
But let's go to you on this one again. Can somebody after a hiatus be competitive, coming back in their 50s to the Olympia stage? And I'm going to ask you this corollary as well. Do you see this, classic physique division and what Flex Wheeler is doing potentially opening up the door to other competitors who may have at one point called it a career and then seeing this as an opportunity to maybe come back to the stage?
It has. Like I have Stan McCoy's cell number. Like we text from time to time, and he always would tell me, "I'm done, man. I'm done." I would see him at Powerhouse and chats with. He's like, "I'm done," and then all of a sudden they come out with this new division, and he's jumping in it. So yeah, it's going to bring a lot of people that knew that they couldn't do anything as a bodybuilder, and they're going to just. It's like they're like let's be honest, they're like little bodybuilders. They're like shittier bodybuilders. Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, that's basically what it is. It's like you got the open class, and then the 212 class are like midgets that can't get, that don't want to, and then you got classic physique that are like shitty mini bodybuilders.
I'm fucking midget. Shit. He's right. Oh, he's fucking right. I agree with him 100%. I don't know. Right? I mean, it's just, what it is? Classic physique. I mean, come on, really? You know what I mean?
It's just the IFBB trying to make money. That's all it is.
Well, it is, bro. Look what they did to the females, I mean, oh my God. They're eventually, the figure chicks or whatever they're called are going to get jacked like the female bodybuilders. It's like a cycle all over again. Yeah. How do you get rid of female bodybuilding when Schwarzenegger, where the fuck are you, bro? You know what I mean? You let them put pole dancing in there, but you took out female bodybuilding. Yet you built your show on the backs of female bodybuilding back in the day when it was, when bodybuilding was bodybuilding.
I love female bodybuilding. I was pissed when they took that out too. It's just horrible.
It's disgraceful. It should never have done it. Maybe Flex should get implants and go in female bodybuilding. I'm just kidding.
In your opinion, somebody after a long hiatus in their 50s, can they come back and theoretically be competitive on an Olympia stage?
Well, I guess Flex has like, genetic wise. I mean, everyone at, top 5 Olympia, especially if someone's placed top 3 Olympia, they, get tremendous genetics. But, I would doubt that Flex is as genetically gifted in bodybuilding as Michael Jordan was in basketball or Muhammad Ali was in boxing. And they couldn't do comebacks. So, a lot of people, don't understand. A lot of people, I mean, maybe Flex himself. There's a difference between, you have to be a tremendous athlete to be an NBA player like Michael Jordan. But, bodybuilding, anyone who's lifted weights, it's even more different than coming back than basketball. You have to put stuff on your back and squat down and bend over and bend your knees and do bend over rows and all those things that, that put so much stress on the body, far more than running up and down a basketball court and having tremendous cardiovascular endurance, which you need in basketball to come back. So if Jordan can't do it, if Muhammad Ali can't do it, I don't think it bodes well for any of these guys who were tremendous bodybuilders in the 90s. Kevin LeBron, I don't think it's going to happen for him this year. Flex Wheeler, I think he's going to be really challenged in terms of getting the elasticity back in the skin and the fullness at any body weight. I mean, the difficulty for him now is going to be, how do I be full on my frame? He might just look skinny because, you know what I mean? He might look skinny because he looks more impressive blown up and round. He's more cartoonish. He's more head turning. So if he doesn't have that roundness and that fullness, and he can't by definition because his weight's going to be 205, what is he going to look like? And at 50. So all those factors come into play that make it difficult, make it, I think, easy to, if you're not emotionally tied into the decision, just to say like, well, that's odd that these guys are coming back.
Dave, let's go to your final word on this one. In Flex Wheeler's case, somebody who's, and even at that case, Kevin Levrone last year, both competitors, long hiatus, Flex Wheeler coming back after that hiatus. Can somebody in their 50s come off a long hiatus, get back on the Olympia stage, and in your opinion, be competitive?
Look, anything's possible. I would never say it's impossible because Dexter Jackson, for all we know, could be competing when he's 60 and still winning shows. But it's unlikely. And Levrone was a perfect example because let's assume Kevin's legs looked as good as his upper body did. He still wouldn't have been top 6. He still wouldn't have been top 10 in that lineup. So, and that's Levrone with his genetics. Flex, will he look good? Yeah, because he's a genetically gifted guy. And I think it'll be more forgiving that if he comes in smaller in classic physique than if he did it in the open class, obviously. But Bostin made a good point. Can Flex beat Darren Charles, who's never stopped competing? Probably not. And Darren was 4th last year. So it's going to be hard for Flex to do well. I think it would be hard for anyone to do well with the amount of a layoff, and coupled on top of that, his health issues that he had, obviously. And it's almost like you got too many things against you. But you know what? If he does it and he looks respectable and even maybe places in the top 6 or so, I mean, it'll be the story of the year for certain.
What roles Dexter play in this? That's my final question. I get to ask a question. You know what I mean? It's like, I wonder if Dexter, I mean, think about how ridiculous, actually, it's insane. How old is Dexter?
Yeah, but Dexter never stopped competing, and Dexter made that point.
I know, but maybe these guys think like, I used to beat Dexter all the time.
I'm sure that's what they're thinking.
I used to beat Dexter all the time. And really, in terms of, if you take, Levrone's physique at his best, maybe it's in his head. I beat Dexter all the time. Right. Certainly Wheeler's got crazier flow, shape, roundness than Dexter. So maybe, I wonder how much Dexter's crazy success that he's had the last 2 years.
I'm sure it has everything to do with it.
Turning 48 in November or so. But
kid.
Greg, you're saying something?
I said he's a kid to me. He hasn't stopped though. They're right. He hasn't stopped. He's a freak. He's that one guy that he could just keep going. He's always hard. Have you ever seen Dexter Jackson out of shape, like fat? No.
No. I've seen
right.
Him.
He's never out of shape. He's always in shape. He's that one guy that he's a freak with that stuff. It doesn't matter if Flex beat him years ago when he was younger. Flex can't be that Flex Wheeler anymore. That Flex Wheeler's done. And if I was him, remember when Mike Tyson tried to come back? He was getting his ass kicked by bums. Guys, he would have slapped them around when he was younger. But he was getting in the rings with like these bums, and they would beat, they would knock him down. He'd be all like, and you're like, no, Mike, please, Jesus Christ, no more, right? That's the way you feel. Like, dude, you're gonna ruin that whole image if you don't place and do well. And even if you do, you know what dude, I don't give a shit even if he won. You know what people are gonna say? But it's classic physique. Look, he's not in bodybuilding. He should be. You're talking about. That's almost like Derek Jeter joining the men's softball league and being like the best guy hitting home runs. Dude, it's men's softball. You used to be an MLB. You know what I mean? Come on, you can't fucking... You used to be a Major League Baseball player. Now you're playing softball with the cops and the firemen and, you're hitting home runs. That's the way it is, right? You win a men's physique. Come on, right? I mean, am I right or wrong?
You're right, for sure.
You're right. That's the best.
Paul, you want to jump into that real quick as far as the, thought that a lot of these competitors may think to themselves, well, you know what? At one point or another, I did go toe-to-toe with Dexter Jackson. I may have even beaten him back in the day, so I see him, prime performance at the age of 47. What's to say I can't maybe come close to replicating what he's doing at this age?
Well,
Do you think that's a factor?
Chris made a good point. I think a lot of it has to do with skin elasticity. Like Dexter has always been in shape. He's never been fat. He's never pulled a Trey Brewer and got like obese. He's never lost it. And, it's easier to keep gaining now. If Flex Wheeler maybe took like 5 years off and like try to slowly put everything back on, now, you know what I mean? Then it would be a more realistic of a story. But him to do it in just 1 year, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. There's no way.
You're watching Iron Debate on RXMuscle.com, RX Television. If you're watching us on YouTube for the first time, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. We go to our second topic, and this has been the topic that has been lighting up the bodybuilding world for the better part of the last week. And if you want to extend it to the last 3 weeks, the main central character in this story has been another villain in another story, and that was in the whole RX versus MD backstage interview gate fiasco. This story, however, has to do with the evolving feud between Shawn Ray of MD and Dallas McCarver, age 25, one of the more promising bodybuilding prospects in the entire industry. This started about a couple of weeks before the Arnold Classic, in which a video was released of Dallas McCarver posing in front of Jim Mannion. And look, there was critique. There was, all over the internet landscape. But probably leading the charge was Shawn Ray. And what he said in MD's forums was very, very caustic, very straightforward. But many thought, all right, hey, there's a place for, criticism. There's a place for, I guess, productive criticism. But what he said, and in the manner in which he said it, it kind of came off as really, really, really harsh towards a young bodybuilder. That was then. Then they had a conversation backstage at the Arnold Australia, and the conversation basically went along the lines of, hey, dude, are we cool? No, we're not cool. Why are we not cool? Because you talk shit about me. Oh, okay, so we're not cool. Yep, we're not cool. And then, obviously, Dallas McCarver nearly passing out during prejudging at the Arnold Australia. That ensued more back and forth with Shawn Ray laying in haymaker after haymaker, not even at Dallas, but at his coach, Chad Nichols. So it's been a bunch of different layers. This story has evolved. So Bostin, I'm going to go to you first on this one because you had a unique perspective on this whole thing. The entire industry says that, well, not the entire, but many people think Shawn Ray has been a bit harsh in his criticism, not only of Dallas, but also of his coach, Chad Nichols. Where do you stand on this as far as Shawn Ray's involvement is concerned?
Well, I don't think attacking Chad is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't blame any coach. Like Dave knows as a coach, if your client follows 70% of what you tell him to do, he's going to get 70% of the result. You cannot blame the coach because you don't know what happens behind closed doors. So let's put Chad out of the equation on that one, because I don't think, Chad might have had him use, Dimidex, which is a loop diuretic, and he might have pushed him too hard. But it's up to Dallas. Dallas is the one that's, making the decisions. He's the one that's putting it in his body. So Shawn going after Chad, that might, that's just kind of crazy. And for him to list out on the forum saying like he killed young blood and this and that, I think a lot of those things are like Tom Prince and shit, kidney failure or whatever. I think a lot of these things are genetically disposed in these people. I mean, you can name all these other bodybuilders that have died of other different, diseases and stuff. And that's a genetic thing. Majority. Obviously, the drugs may enhance that, but you can't blame drugs. You can't blame a coach for that. Now, for him to criticize Dallas, I mean, that's what he does. He critiques people, and I give him credit because even though him and Dallas are on the same team, muscular development, he doesn't have a problem voicing his opinion on the issue. And he said many times in interviews with muscular development, Dallas has improved. Yes, he was second to Cedric, and it was basically a two-man show. So he's not like always talking shit about Dallas, like saying, oh, he was soft, this and that. So he has his positive critiques on Dallas. I think Dallas got really sensitive, which the fitness industry is extremely sensitive, and and then it just went from there. But that's my take on it, really.
Well, let me just recap a couple of things that I left out. One, revisiting what Bostin said about what Shawn said in particular. he basically put this whole post and said, Don Long, Tom Prince, Flex Wheeler lost their kidneys. Nasser, Don Youngblood, dead. And in all caps. I mean, really dramatic post. And basically then imploring for Dallas to drop Chad, saying that I hope he sees the light before darkness settles. It's something like really of a grim nature. Now, Dallas came out and said that he had an upper respiratory infection, bronchitis. Yesterday, we had Guy Cisternino on our airwaves confirming that story. He was the one with him backstage, helping him after he had, fallen ill. So that is their side of the story, that he had an upper respiratory infection. But Greg, I want to go to you on this one because, we're not just talking about whether or not Shawn Ray has the right to critique bodybuilders. That is his job. He's an analyst. But it's the manner in which he has gone about it, the manner in which he went about it 2 weeks before the Arnold, and now going after Chad Nichols, and really, in a sense, in many opinions, sticking the knife and twisting it when that may have been misrepresented the facts, given that Dallas, to his own first account, Guy Cisternino, to his account, says it was an upper respiratory infection and not something that Chad stuck in him that caused him to fall ill in Australia.
I got to tell you something. I just want to say, Dallas, if you're watching this, I think you're a good guy. But Boston will tell you, and so will Dave. You got to think in your fucking skin, dude. If I pissed off and freaked out every time somebody hated me on the internet, dude, there's full articles about how fucked up I am. So you got to think in your skin. All of us guys, the hate is for all of us. But getting back, I agree with everything that Boston said. Yeah, sorry, Boston. I'm a little old, a little fucking amnesia here. It's Alzheimer's. I agree with everything he said because I'm going to tell you something. Shawn's a little out of control with some of that. It's Shawn's job to critique, so he had every right to say what he said about Dallas. Okay, as far as his conditioning, you know what I mean? In the whole that part of it. But to attack Chad Nichols and make accusations like that is wrong. And what he did with Dave was wrong, okay? About, grabbing a guy from an interview. You could have sat there and waited till that interview was done and then said, hey, Dave, come on, he's our guy, come over here, or whatever. But to go in the middle of an interview and grab a guy, that's wrong. I like Shawn, but somebody's going to want him knocking him out. I'm going to tell you that right now. I mean, it happened to Dorian Yates. It'll happen to him. Believe me. You got to show a little more class, too. You don't know what killed Don Youngblood. You don't know what caused all those problems. You can't make that accusation. I mean, that's bad. If I was Chad Nichols, I would probably want to fucking sue him for something like that because that's bad. You're claiming that these guys' deaths and stuff are on Chad Nichols' hands, and I think that that's wrong. You can't do that. And I do believe that Dallas was sick. It's happened with a lot of guys. A lot of guys were backstage, overdid diuretics. I mean, look at Momo Benaziza, died from winning a show. It happens. The sport is like that because of what we have to do to get in that dry heart condition. So nobody's healthy up on stage. Backstage, they're all laying like this. Right? You know what I mean? Nobody feels good. Nobody says, dude, you know what, man? That was great being out there. Let's do it again. When, they crawl off that fucking stage because, unfortunately, that's part of what this sport does. When you compete, I hated taking diuretics, you know what I mean? Because they kill you. You feel like shit. You don't even crave food anymore. You don't care about food. You just say fucking water. You feel like a guy in the fucking desert. Water. Am I right or wrong, right? You guys know, but what's that?
That's the worst part is the last couple days.
Water. It's the fucking water. I didn't want food. I didn't give a shit about no pizza, none of that shit. I was like, dude, I just want a glass of water. But that's what happens, But to blame Chad Nichols, that's wrong. Shawn, you're wrong with that. You have every right to critique the physiques that you see on stage. You have every right to do that. Okay, when you had Flex Wheeler and what's his name, fucking Kai Green sitting there at the Olympia, not the Olympia, the Arnold Classic, and they can't say a guy could have got out with a belly out there, and they'd say, "Wow, he's in great condition. He looks really good. His calves are really pumped." Come on, guys. So I give Shawn Ray credit for telling it like it is. I think he's getting out of control, grabbing people off of fucking interviews and then pointing fingers saying, well, it's the guru's fault. You know, he's going to kill you one day. You should, you know. So, I mean, that's my take. I think that's totally wrong. I think that's bad. That's really bad. That can get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? Really bad, too. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. You know, whatever.
Chris, let's go on this one. Your take on what you have seen in terms of how this feud has evolved, has progressed between Shawn Ray and Dallas McCarver, and then, of course, the way that it's kind of angled now towards what he said about Chad Nichols. And, you know, of course, there's all sorts of talk about what's behind that, what motivates that.
The feud. You can't get Dallas. You can't get mad when somebody tells the truth. If you look like shit, it doesn't matter if you had diarrhea. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter if you had projectile vomiting. I've seen all that backstage. Okay, it doesn't matter. You look like shit. You look like shit. You know what I mean? You got join the hater. I mean, you know, I got a crew of haters. You know, so it doesn't. You know, they hate my guts. But that's, you can't do anything of it. But the feud, I think, is going to really start more with Chad, and I think that's going to escalate because I don't think Chad is going to take that sitting down. And, you know, Shawn's got to, you know, cool his jets a little bit with that shit because I like Shawn. Again, I get along really well with him, but he's not really a tough guy. And one of these guys is going to grab him backstage and boot his ass. You know what I mean? You can't.
What's you like about him, Greg? What do you like about him? What endearing attribute does he have that you like?
I don't want to say something.
I mean, I can list like 5 things. I don't even know. I think Bostin Loyd, I've never met him.
I like about him, he was intelligent. Yeah, but I worked with him, and he was always, me and him always had a really good rapport. So until he does something to me personally, you know,
until he got you fired, Greg.
I got to be honest with you. He actually warned me it might be coming. So
yeah, well, he's the one who facilitated it. That's why he warned you.
No, you know, I like everybody. I get along with everybody. I don't have an ego. He has a fucking ego. But, you know, I'm just saying to you, doing things like that, Dave, doing what he did to you, that was, to me, it's worse than saying that Dallas McCarver looks like shit. Because doing what he did to you, I mean, he grabbed a guy from in the middle of you just started talking. You can't do that. That is like, you wait. If you're upset, you wait till the interview's over, then you go talk to Dave. I'm sorry, I see Johnny tell me shut the fuck up.
Chris, let's go to you again. Your assessment on what, how this feud has progressed and what's behind it. Why, in your opinion, is Shawn going after Chad in such a just stick the knife
Sid, you made a mistake on your intro. You said this started 3 weeks ago. This started in 1998, and Dallas is nothing but a pawn. This started when Coleman, Nasser, and Flex started smoking Shawn Ray on the Olympia stage. And while these guys are coming back, you know, to try to regain their glory on stage, Flex, Wheeler, or whatever, you know, Shawn Ray still living in the past and pissed at Chad for working with these guys. And, you know, it's common knowledge that in the end, right, that Shawn Ray has accused, when there was diuretic testing, of Chad giving him magic diuretics that would allow him to pass the drug test. That's why those guys were beating me. So Dallas is nothing more than a pawn. And Shawn actually opened up his mouth way too soon when he critiqued Dallas when he posed in Pittsburgh that weekend, because that's all you heard from Kermit was that Dallas's stomach was hanging out and that his condition was off and that he was flat. Well, we all went to the Arnold in Ohio. Dallas came out at no point. Listen, I'm helping Cedric McMillan. The first thing I want to do is see Dallas's stomach touch his, you know, ankles. And at no point in prejudging did I feel like, oh, his stomach is distended. At no point did I think, oh, his condition's not there. At no point did I think, oh, he's flat. All of those things were 3-week out critiques that Shawn was spewing on Dallas. And it had nothing to do with Dallas. It had everything to do with Chad, because Shawn, who called Crime Busters on Chad, and Shawn, who called the IFBB and said that Flex had fake calves. That's the character of Shawn. Just hates Chad. That's all it boils down to. Everything else is conjecture. So Shawn will sit in front of a computer and 24/7 and look for anyone Chad helps. And if somebody comes in this case, Dallas passed out on stage. But if he didn't pass out on stage and he was a water buffalo in New Zealand or Australia, it don't matter. Shawn will be on there typing out the same things. Time to drop the guru. No place in the sport for gurus. Meanwhile, I have to remind everybody, every single guy, like it or not, anyone winning big shows has got gurus. You know.
Are you saying he's jealous? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I say he's got. I'm not a psychologist, but I think he's got some issues that that he needs to work on. He's like universally disliked. Another word to say that is he's universally usually by people in the sport, and the only thing we can do is to stick up for him is all come to agreement, everyone on this show, that he's one of the best bodybuilders on stage. That's ever been. He's a tremendous bodybuilder, but it stops there.
But you're saying, though, you think that he's jealous. You think he still has that carryover from.
Yes, he still has it out for Chad since 1998.
Boss, let me go back to you.
Big part of it, dude. I mean, this is the guy, who. The one thing I can disagree with Bostin on, I think, is someone, or you said, Greg, that, he talks well about, previously he talks well about Dallas. He talks nothing good about Dallas, or he's never talked.
In the muscular development video after prejudge, he said Dallas looked good. He fixed his gut. He said that he is a strong second after Cedric, and it's him and Cedric, and it's a two-man show.
Well, black and white.
Blackman told him it's
exactly.
The whole point is, after he threw him under the bus 3 weeks ago, it's made himself look like an idiot by saying his gut's hanging out, he's not going to be in condition, he's flat, he's this and that. When the contest comes down to over and over, only two people being called out, Dallas and Cedric. What are you going to say? That he deserves fourth place? At that point,
honestly, though, but Chris, think about it. That's obvious. That's honestly a good thing that he critiqued him, because, hey, maybe if he wouldn't have fixed that gut issue, maybe he wouldn't have been so self-conscious about it on stage and held it in. Because I know for a fact, if I'm not holding in my stomach, it's going to protrude. And maybe it triggered in him that I'm going to, maybe for 3 weeks he was working on that, posing.
But we don't know that. That's just a hypothetical. Maybe Chad could have said, you let that stomach, out, and I'm going to kill you.
But I'm just saying.
John would have said he'll kill him with diuretics. That's the easiest way.
Well, maybe Steve Blackman said, if you don't say something good about one of our athletes, come on, Shawn, look at his glutes, they're striated. You know what I mean? I don't know, whatever. Don't kid yourself, Dave. Am I right or wrong? Blackman. Come on, when it's one of the athletes, he probably told Shawn, you got to say something good about the guy. You know what I'm saying? Find something good to say. So Shawn bit his this and said, I actually like Dallas McCarver. I don't know him. I never met him. But I think he looks good. I didn't think he looked that bad. That's just me.
Good. I mean, nobody's going to knock him on how he looked. But, I just think that for him to critique him 3 weeks out, that's his job. And maybe Dallas was self-conscious about it. I know for a fact if somebody critiqued me and said that, and I was going on stage and I knew I was going to be in the public eye, I would fix that shit in a heartbeat.
You're right. I agree. Maybe that's why Blackman told him to critique him. Maybe Blackman said, look, we need him to win the show. I'm losing money. You know what I mean? Fucking get him, tell him he looks good. Tell him about the gut. Tell him, right? Dave, how many times did Steve tell you to tell somebody? He used to do it to me all the time. When we would blast you guys at RX, he would say something. You got to say something, Romano knew it. He used to say, that's Valentino. That's Blackman. Blackman's telling him what to say. That's Blackman's dog barking. Remember?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the final word now. My final word on this is, I mean, Chris nailed it hit it right on the head. Shawn has issues with Chad Nichols going back to the Coleman era. It's well known. We've been around it. We've seen it. Yeah, he has the right as a journalist to critique what he sees, just like we do. But he biasly trashes anyone who's related to Chad Nichols, Chris Aceto. You know, those are his two favorite targets because Chris and him don't get along. He actually, if we want to remind people what happened, he ratted out Cedric for being late to a competitors meeting in Brazil and cost him disqualification from the show. So here's Shawn, the guy who supports the athletes, and he's getting someone kicked. The only reason he did that was because it was Chris Aceto working with him. If it was anyone else, I mean, maybe Chad. If it was anyone else aside from those two guys, I guarantee he wouldn't have said a word. So Shawn is very spiteful. He does things with complete knowledge of what he's doing, and that's what's irritating about him. And that, I think, is the problem that people have with him. Yeah, Boston's right. He has the right to say whatever he wants, but he doesn't say it like it is with everyone. He only does it with certain people. So therefore, it's not true, honest journalism.
Boston, I just wanted to get a quick thought out of you because something Gregg mentioned about Dallas McCarver basically saying that he needs to grow thicker skin, that he's going to be taking critique all career long. If you had to advise him or give him some advice, given just how active you are in the social media realm, what would you tell him? He's young, he's 25, still very young in his professional career, and you saw the long Facebook post that he wrote regarding Shawn Ray. What do you think of that post? Do you think he should have handled it differently? What would you advise him?
I mean, he has the right to write whatever he wants, but somebody like me who knows insecurity, who could smell that shit from a mile away, all I saw was insecurity in the post. So some people might read it and be like, okay, cool, he's bashing Shawn Ray. And I'm like, wow, this kid's like really insecure. Like, he got real butthurt over that shit. And like, honestly, like, I have so many haters. Gregg has so many haters. Like, that shit, I think it's because we have so many haters and we've had to deal with it so long. We just like let that shit go. Like, it just doesn't bother us. But I think Dallas is going to get that. He's 25. He's coming. He's up and coming. All eyes are on him. Okay, he's the up and coming star. It was Justin Compton. Justin faded hard. He's coming up, and Justin's out of the picture. He's everyone's eyes on him, and he fucked up. Whatever happened with whether he had an upper respiratory infection, whether he had whatever he had, whatever might have had, who cares? It doesn't matter. He still fainted on stage in public eye. People are going to criticize him for that. He needs to grow thicker skin, 100%.
Can I say one other thing? He's white, man. He's never gonna win the big O, man. I just don't see white guys winning that shit. I mean, these black kids today are coming up with genetics that are fucking amazing. Yeah, amazing.
No, he won't be a next Mr. Olympia, that's for sure. I mean, he's a freak.
I don't mean anything bad. I hope he does. I hope, if you're watching, kid, I hope you do. But these guys today, the genetics I see coming out of these guys today, I don't know, man.
If a black guy works hard and stays off the KFC and watermelon, they're hard to beat, man.
Oh.
On that note,
we're going
to move to the third topic on the show. Again, you're watching Iron Debate on RXMuscle.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of these shows, our news updates, any of our content. The third topic, and again, we referenced Dallas McCarver nearly fainting, nearly passing out during prejudging and not being allowed to continue at the Arnold Classic. That show, of course, won by Brandon Curry, which seemingly nobody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about what happened with Dallas McCarver and then Shawn Ray, so on and so forth. But we are seeing a disturbing trend in the bodybuilding world, and that is a lot of sudden death, a lot of illnesses, heart attacks, freak accidents, drug overdoses, and the question is what's causing it? Is it overtraining? Is it excessive PED usage, recreational drug usage? Is there an ego element to it? What is behind this recent rash of uptick, in terms of illnesses and fatalities that have relevancy to the bodybuilding world? So, Boston, I'm going to go to you first on this one. You are a keen observer from the pro level to the amateur level of the sport of bodybuilding, and you've seen all of this. What's your take?
I think it's a combination of everything: genetics, drugs, recreational drugs, steroids. I think it's a combination. I think if you're genetically disposed to something and you abuse drugs long enough, hard enough with certain drugs, if you have a bad reaction, I think it's just everything that goes into bodybuilding. Saying that I haven't had any health issues, but I've had shit like nerve, like, shooting my tricep and my ulnar nerve exploding. I've had shit happen to me all the time. I mean, it's just part of the game. I mean, when you're shooting so much shit and when you're taking all these drugs, combined with, if you're genetically disposed to, elevated liver enzymes, a weak kidney, whatever it may be, I think that everything combined, it can cause these issues. That's why people need to start listening to their bodies. If they need a break, they need a break.
Chris, your take.
I think part of it is people want to be superstars on Instagram. I do. And
I was going to bring that up, but
meaning there's the allure of just pushing the envelope on everything always. I think there's an idea of that plays in with, I think in 2017, people don't have as finite barriers and they don't have as finite understanding of, of how risky things can be. I think that just, because there's a lot of information floating around, this person uses this and this is the amount, and somebody, on the outside might say, well, he looks fine, he must be fine. He's been, competing at that level for 6 years now. Or maybe, there's conjecture of he must do this then, that people just push the envelope and that envelope is getting pushed further and further in terms of what people do, how long they do things, new compounds that people use, and all these things that, add that to the idea that, I've said this a long time ago, Dorian Yates was like the first guy to be like 300 and in shape. Everybody's 300 now. I mean, Boston can tell you how many people are like, hit 300. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so you're going to diet down to 220. So
yeah, exactly. Everyone's a water buffalo. That's the thing that I think.
I mean, So I mean, how healthy can that be? Versus, guys competing years ago. Maybe if they walked on stage 230 or 220, maybe gigantic blown up was 260 in the off season. Now everybody's 300. I know people who are in the 250s who are like, I'm going to do classic physique. You're 250, dude.
It's the weight fluctuation. I think that's the hardest part on the heart right there.
I would agree with that as well.
Greg, let's go to you on this one. What do you think is behind this recent rash of deaths, illnesses, things that we're seeing? Is it training? Is it what people are taking? And what's causing this? Is it what Chris mentioned? This.
I think all the guys are right. I think Boston's right, and I think Chris is right. I got a few things to say actually about what Chris was saying in a second, but to be honest with you, all these guys are dying of the same shit. It's either heart attack or kidneys failure, and the whole bit, right? So to me, that shows that it's definitely a drug thing. Now, whether it's steroids and a lot of these guys do recreational drugs. I mean, I used to be with Craig Titus and King Kamali and all these guys. We'd be in the fucking sound factory, and then those guys would be throwing ecstasies. I don't party. I don't drink. I'm naturally nuts. You know what I mean? And these fucking guys would be, taking ecstasy and all that shit. I used to see it. I mean, I've been with these guys when they do that. And a lot of them snort coke and all that. So between all of that and the drugs you do for, the drugs that you do for competing in bodybuilding, plus, you throw diuretics and everything else, which throws the heart off, and the food. I mean, it's not good to be eating massive amounts of protein all day like that. It's very hard on your kidneys. Go to any doctor, they'll tell you, holy shit, cut down on a protein intake. But I want to say something what Chris was saying about the guys being 300 today. Let's talk about the smaller guys. A couple of years ago, it was 202. Now it's got to be 212 because nobody can get into the 202. It's too big. But when I was younger, you had Franco Columbo, Danny Padilla, all those guys. When Schwarzenegger competed in the Olympia, what people don't notice, there was two classes. There was the over 200 and the under 200. Everybody was in the under 200, and you only had 2 or 3 guys in the over 200. That's why Franco would go against Arnold and lose. You remember that, right, Chris? I'm saying to you that now the little guys, look at my friend Alessandro Savi, he's friends with Dave and everything. He's 250 pounds at 5'1". You know what I mean? These guys are humongous today. And that's not a diss. I love Ali. But what I'm saying is, I'm saying everybody today, even the smaller guys, that's why they did away with the 202. They had to push it to 212 because everybody's having trouble making it. Eventually, it's going to be 220.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Greg, because we're running out of time. Johnny Styles has to leave. Let's go to Chris. Just real quick, Chris, give us your impression of what's going on here in this bodybuilding world.
In terms of, I gave you my impression. In terms of people dropping dead, and
yeah.
I think Boston may have surmised it, but I said people, think they're bigger than they really are. Everyone's parading around at 280, 288, 291, 301, and they're coming down for contest weight to, maybe they are peeled, but they're coming all the way down to like 231, 234. The obvious, which was not obvious to even me, and Boston pointed out, is the unbelievable weight fluctuations, going up to get up there and then down to get there. Add on to what,
and then right after the show, they put 30 pounds on in
10 minutes. In 10 minutes.
Personally, my opinion on the whole thing is, and we can call this the last word, it's risky behavior. Bodybuilders engage in a lot of risky behavior, not just drug use, not just training with crazy weights in the gym. They like to go out and have a good time when they go out. They like to do everything to an extreme. And I think extreme behavior, can cause extreme consequences. The number one reason why young people die, is accidents. It's not because of cancer and heart disease, We just saw this past week a bodybuilder die. We don't know what happened. He fell out of a window at a brothel, and fell to the ground and died. Was he pushed out? Was it a drug deal gone bad? No one knows. That's called risky behavior. And unfortunately, in our industry, there's a lot of risky behavior. And that's why you have extreme things happen. Now, not everyone dies. There's a lot of people who don't die and who are very healthy. But there are cases of this, and we see it. And look at Momo Benazizer and Andreas Munzer. That was extreme drug use, We know that. We knew what they were taking. We saw the cycles. So bodybuilders have extreme behavior, and I think it's important for them to find balance. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't find balance till we get to our older age. Some people don't make it there because they don't find balance quick enough. So it comes down to balance your life. If you can find balance, you can bodybuild in a healthy way.
Boston, before we go, I just wanted to get that one bit. Again, is that possible? We're talking about a very hyper-competitive sport in bodybuilding where there is a lot of ego, there is a lot of insecurity. People are always posting pictures of themselves. It is a very transparent sport. Is that whole concept of, moderation even applicable now in terms of what we see, how people are trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger and harder and peeled and so on and so forth?
Well, that's why I kind of got out of the whole competitive bodybuilding, because I know my personality type. If I'm going to compete, I want to win. I want to be the best. And sometimes that's not going to happen because you know what? Somebody might train harder than me. They might not diet harder than me, but they might have better genetics and they might have better structure. They might come out on top for various reasons. And I'm never going to be good, great. I'm never going to make money doing this. So I'm glad that I step back. A lot of people need to know to step up. I know guys with the worst structure in the world in the gym, and they're 300 pounds, like Chris said, and they actually think they're going to be on the Olympia stage one day. And it's like, oh my God, it's like, wake up. You'll never go anywhere. You look like a block. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people just need to come to the realization, like I did, that I'll never compete. I'm not going to ever be that great. I'll just continue to live the lifestyle. And if I feel like shit, I'll bring the doses down and I'll go by how I feel. You know what I mean? And as long as I could maintain a healthy business and and support myself and support my family, I'm happy.
That's going to do it for this episode of Iron Debate. Special thanks, Bostin Loyd, Gregg Valentino, and Chris Aceto. For Johnny Styles and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Again, Guy Cisternino, the first-hand account of what happened backstage with Dallas McCarver at the Arnold Australia. That is live right now on RXMuscle.com and, of course, the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Till next time, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good one.
Fuck off.